Well, it's 4 o'clock and I see that we have everyone. So I will call the July 21st meeting of the Hingham School Committee and
recording in progress
and Interim Superintendent Screening Committee to order at 4 o'clock. I just wanted to note that this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2020, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If anyone plans to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Now, I know Harbor Media will be recording this interview as well as the other ones. Is anyone else planning to record? If you're anyone on the committee, you can just unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand if you're not on the committee. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I just want to welcome Dr. Gary Maestas for joining us today and for taking the time out. And I just wanted to say we're joined with the 7 members of the Hingham School Committee, as well as representatives of the Hingham Public Schools staff who are on the Interim Superintendent Screening Committee. So before we get started, I thought it would be good if we could just all go around and introduce ourselves briefly, just our names and our roles within the Hingham Public School system. I'm Carrie, I'm the chair of the Hingham School Committee and the Interim Superintendent Screening Committee. And we're just going to go across the screen, and it may be different for everyone. So we can start with Heather Sullivan.
Hi, I'm Heather Sullivan, and I have taught 8th grade English at the middle school in Hingham for 25 years.
Thank you.
Wendy Rabson.
Hi, I'm Wendy Rabson. I'm one of the kindergarten teachers at Foster School, and I've been there for about 20-ish years. I haven't looked up the exact numbers, losing track after 20, so.
Awesome. Nice to meet you both.
Eliza OReilly.
Hi, I'm Eliza OReilly. I'm on the school committee and I'm serving my 3rd term. And I have 3 children. 2 have graduated and 1 will be a senior next year in the Hingham Public Schools.
Jen Venom.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Jen Venom. I'm starting my 2nd year on the school committee. And I'm also a member of the Interim Screening Committee. Nice to meet you.
Ness Currenti.
Hi, I'm Ness Currenti, also on the school committee. I am starting my 3rd year on the school committee. I have 3 kids in the district, 1 in elementary and actually 1 in the high school, so everywhere.
Right.
You're well represented. John Ferris.
Hi, Gary. I'm John Ferris. I'm the Director of Business and Support Services for the district.
Nice to meet you all so far.
Katie Roberts.
Hi, Dr. Maestas. I'm Katie Roberts, the K-12 Science Director, and I'm also a Hingham parent. I have 1 child at South Elementary School and 1 just about to start at the middle school. And similar to Heather, I'm beginning my 25th year in Hingham.
Great.
Mary Eastwood.
Hi, Gary. I'm Mary Eastwood. So nice to meet you, and
Nice
my
to meet
condolences as well about your mom.
Thank you.
It's never
Thank
easy, no matter what.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Totally understand. I'm sorry that I look like I raced home, but I raced home. I was on another committee all day today, and I know Michelle Ayer was too. I am the principal of South Elementary School. I've taught at the middle school and high school levels and elementary and special ed, and now I'm the principal of South Elementary, as I said, and I'm starting my 43rd year.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Like,
thank you.
Carlos Silva.
Dr. Maestas, my name is Carlos da Silva. I have been on the school committee for going to my 6th year, 2nd term. I am the proud parent of 2 graduates of HPS, and I'm proud to be here. And thank you so much for interviewing us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Michelle Ayer.
Hello, my name is Michelle Ayer. I am the Vice Chair of the Hingham School Committee. I guess I'm starting my 5th year already. Time flies when you're having fun. I have 2 children, both graduates of Hingham Public Schools, and a proud parent of them and a proud community member. So welcome and thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, Tim Miller-Dempsey.
Hello, I'm Tim Dempsey. I am the newbie on the school committee. I'm just starting my first term and I'm the parent of 2 kids. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Great. So thank you everyone again. This is how we're going to work the interviews. Each candidate has an hour, so we want to stick as closely as possible to that time. So if you could keep an eye on the clock as you answer the questions. Each member of the committee has a question for you, and we'll go in the order of the Google Doc that we all have. And if you find that you want to follow up after the interview on anything, feel free to share information with me or with Susan D'Amato, and we'll make sure that everyone on the team gets it. So that being said, could you just tell us about your personal, educational, and professional background and what led you to apply for this position?
Yeah. Before we begin, I just have to let you know that I'm on a digital subscriber line, which is a DSL line, and if we have a little complication, I'll tell my dad afterwards, you know. But it's a little slow. But if I come across choppy at times, it's not because it's intentional. So let me give you a little bit of idea of who I am. I moved from New Mexico to Massachusetts 33 years ago. I was working at a boys camp in Maine, and ever since I was a little guy, I always wanted to work at a boys camp. I don't know why I got this idea, but I really wanted to work with kids. Since I was probably 7 or 8, I wanted to be a first grade teacher. And my dad is a chemistry and physics teacher. That had no influence on me. It was that I loved children. And every chance I got, I was running track camps and anything I could to get involved with kids, basketball coaching and so on. So my last college that I went to here in New Mexico, I saw a posting for a summer camp counselor in Freiburg, Maine. And right next to the Freiburg Fairgrounds, there's a camp named, it's Indian Acres and Forest Acres. There is an organization that's been running a camp. This next year will be 100 years that they've been running camp. And I saw a job posting to be a summer camp counselor. So I applied. I called and I landed up interviewing and I got a job. So I would fly up from Albuquerque to Boston, take the Trailways bus up to Conway, New Hampshire, and they'd pick me up. I did that for 3 years in a row. And my last summer, I saw a job posting. I just graduated. I saw a job posting for a job in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, as a technology education teacher. And I graduated from a program here in New Mexico that was one of the first in the country to transition the old industrial arts programs into technology ed. So it's basically, if you can dream it, you can design it, you can build it. And that's what tech ed is, you know. And so they wanted me to do that in Longmeadow, and it was the first of its kind. So I did that for 5 years. I then transferred to Williams Middle School in Longmeadow. They wanted me to do the same at the middle school to make a feeder program for the high school. I did that at Williams, so I really got closer to the love that I had for the middle age kids, elementary age kids. I was working on my master's degree at Springfield College and master's in ed leadership. Landed graduate from Springfield, and shortly after that, I applied for an assistant principal job in North Brookfield, Massachusetts, and I became assistant principal from grades 5 through 12. And I did that, and it was probably the best job I've ever had. I really enjoyed it because I was involved with parents, kids, school committee. We had small campus, 800 kids, K to 12. And when the principals were out, I was the only person around, so I learned a lot. I learned a lot there, and then I landed up wanting to be the principal, and I became the principal of Old Rochester Regional Junior High School in Mattapoisett. So I moved my family from Springfield all the way to Mattapoisett. Talk about culture shock from New Mexico to Springfield to Mattapoisett, So, it was a wonderful experience. I took on Old Rochester. Back, if you studied Old Rochester 22 years ago, there was a a sexual predator in the building, and I took over knowing that, and I landed up, you know, trying to make a difference, and it was I learned a lot. You know, it taught me how to handle difficulty in the toughest of ways. Left Old Rochester to I was asked to apply for. I have a strong background in technology, and I really love technology, so I was asked about Plymouth to apply for the job of technology coordinator for the community of Plymouth. And at the time, we were about 9,500 kids. We had you know, massive network, a lot of technology. You know, 6 computer drops in every classroom. What they wanted me to do was try to make everybody use it. Right? How do you get people to use what we have? So I did that for. I took the job. I did that for 5 years, and then we had a principal leave Plymouth South Middle School halfway through the year, and the superintendent at the time asked me if I would be the interim principal for the remainder of the year so they could do a search. You know, then after we did the search, I helped with that, got everything rolling. One of the assistant superintendents left. I applied for that, and I became the assistant superintendent for administration instructions. That meant I was second in charge of the superintendent. I did that for 5 years. You know, but just wonderful experience. In Plymouth, there's 2 assistant superintendents. I know we have our whole business office, school business administrator. We have coordinators that are K through 12 that just work curriculum. So my job was really curriculum and managing the implementation of curriculum K to 12 and ensuring that we had, you know, curriculum adoption cycles. We had the budgets were built to support those adoption cycles. And then when the superintendent retired, I applied, not really wanting to be superintendent. I applied because, you know, people are saying, you know, you should do it, you know, and I landed up applying to be superintendent 13 years ago, and I landed up getting the job, and, you know, I had to make sense of it all. Landed up in Plymouth. Our budget's about 126 million, 14 schools. You know, I knew the district well. I knew all the people. You know, we have about almost 1,500 staff, and it became just. I think I was a better superintendent than I was most anything. You know, because I love people. I love causing things to happen, to implement, to probably to impact the lives of kids, you know, and I think what I try to do is really do that. So I've done a lot of other things outside of those parameters, but my love has been children and really trying to create an environment where they feel that they're part, that they're when they walk into a school, this is my school, you know, and built 2 high schools in Plymouth. Had the very distinct fortune of building Plymouth North High School. That was an $89 million facility, soup to nuts, you know, and that was we landed up building it right when 2008, 2009, right when we had the economic downturn. So our cost, our value on that school, unbelievable. We did very well because the economy was really struggling. And then built Plymouth South High School, the comprehensive vocational school, and that was 115 million. One of the things we did in Plymouth, I'm really into technology and energy and all that stuff. So the Plymouth Public Schools is run 100%. Actually, we generate more electricity than we need. We give it to the town of Plymouth, but we generate every bit of energy for the schools, or they do. That's run by solar. We have solar farms that we have agreements with throughout the South Shore. We have one in Lakeville. We have one in Kingston. We have one in Wareham. And they supply the energy for the public school system in Plymouth at a set rate for 20 years at 8 cents a kilowatt hour, which really helped us to stabilize what our expenses were for energy for the long haul. You know, so that's what our goal was, is trying to minimize some of those expenses. So, but anyway, I'll stop talking. I just really loved working for children, and that's kind of where I come from.
Great, thank you. Mary, I think you're next.
Great. Yes, Gary, I think you've answered a lot of this, so feel free to say I said this in the last question. But what is your experience in the trenches, which you kind of did tell us, as a teacher and or building administrator? And please also discuss how this experience will influence the way you oversee curriculum and the promotion of excellence in teaching and learning. And you really have said a lot of it already, but if you want to add other things, that'd be great.
So if you have an opportunity, I know you're probably, when I started this, the career, that we didn't have the internet. I remember we were all dial up, but if you do a search on superteach, I developed a program at Plymouth where I would go into the classroom and the kids would have to teach me what they were taught. So teachers would step out, I'd walk in, they would teach me. And one of the things that I found to be the most enlightening for me is how willing our teachers were to allow me to come in the classroom and do this. And more importantly, how kids were just so happy to share what they know and how they were able to do it, So I think I really shifted my focus on trying to be an instructional leader that was so focused on the written curriculum, but how do we supplement the curriculum to give kids more real life experiences? And I think that's what I really, Mary, to go along with your question, the greatest experiences I've had in education have been on my knees in the classroom, looking kids in the eye, understanding where they come from. What can I do in my role to support what you're doing? And you know what? When they fall, sometimes they don't need a hand up. They just need encouragement. And I think a lot of times we want to step in and we don't show them how to rebound and learn from those mistakes. And I think every great invention, there are thousands of mistakes behind it before you get perfection. And I wanted kids to see that we can take another take, we can make a mistake, we can do it right, but I want you to like the final product. But I think I always wanted that for children, and it's been that's been my focus for our teachers. We need to have them as part of this listening game that we play, that we want to listen to them. They're important. They're important to the process. They're important to everything that we do, and we need to model it. So I thought it was really important for me, even as assistant principal, that to respect children, respect them. So that's kind of my approach and how I the same to staff. I mean, staff, it's face-to-face thing,
Thank you. Katie, you're up.
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Maestas. And as a science director, I would love to chat with you more about technology and the energy initiative. I've been told to stick to the script, so I will do so. So the question from our leadership team, so just to let you know, our district senior leadership team consists of principals, K-12 directors, and central office administrators. So in your role as interim superintendent, how would you build trust and ensure a high-functioning leadership team during this recovery year ahead? And in what ways might you draw on the skills and institutional knowledge of current district leaders during your interim year?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the key tenets to leadership is how do you it's called the speed of trust. How can you go fast? But how do you do it? You can't do it without people trusting you. You can't do it without a level of recognition and people knowing what to expect. And I think one of the things that I have found very helpful in my career is building relationships at high levels with my staff, all the way from our custodians, paraprofessionals, all the way up to coordinators, directors, principals, assistant superintendents. And I think there needs to be a significant amount of work early on to be able to get everybody, on. I think it really needs to be said that all of the administrators in the district have a very unique situation with an interim coming in. They're going to have to trust this individual in a short amount of time because this individual doesn't have a lot of time with them. And they're going to have to build these systems and build a relationship in a short period of time because we don't have 3 years to build that or 2 years or a contract. We have months. And I think it's important for the person that comes in to spend a great deal of time, sometimes individually, sometimes as a segment, elementary, middle, and high, to be able to understand where they come from, the experiences they have. I'm not the kind of person that is going to go in and try to say, hey, this is what works. I want to find out what has worked. And I find out what you believe is an adjustment that needs to be made. And I want to find out from you what's not working at all. And I want to capitalize on that. And so I think the relationship in the first month, 2 months, 3 months is going to be extremely crucial. It takes time. It doesn't take email. It doesn't, I don't like phone calls. I like face-to-face. My first cause of action is when I get an email is to pick the phone up and call that person. If I can visit them, I will do that. So I think to your point, how do we get that speed of trust in place? It's really going to be grounded in building a relationship that is, demonstrated. I think every single one of you can probably find out about my career. And I know, Katie, you probably know Allison Reardon in Plymouth. Allison will tell you, I spent a lot of time with Allison in her office, going over things that work, don't work. What can I do in my role to support you to do that? And that's what I'm here. That's what I'm there for. I'm not, I would have the title as an interim superintendent, but I'm only as good as what you're able to give me. So I think that relationship is really important.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Wendy, you're up. Sorry, Wendy, you're muted.
Didn't want the background noise. Sorry about that.
No problem.
What would you do to maintain teacher morale and to support teachers, even in the face of other pressures such as pandemic challenges, budget constraints, state mandates, increased testing, and standards?
Yeah, that is one of the things that I think is so important for every teacher in the school system to know when somebody of my background or even responsibility, they know what to expect. And in Plymouth, what I would do every year, it would take me 3 days. Every first day of school, second or third, depending on how quickly I could get to schools. I talk a lot to people, so sometimes it takes me a little longer. But I would go and visit every single teacher and spend time in the classroom, understanding who you are, get that recognition. And I would tell every teacher in Plymouth, if you ever need me, you just have to send me an email. I'd give people my cell phone. I had almost 1,500 staff. I managed it. And I think that was really important for me to, just like us building the relationship that we have for our coordinators, directors, assistant superintendents, business office, how do we as a team, not just a superintendent, but how do we model that for our staff? That we're working for you. And I've always tell my central office staff and my principals, we are working for teachers so that they can do their job. And one of the things that I would instill is that that's what we're here for. And I would say that. I'd walk in there and I would do that. And then I'm used to doing that. That's not uncommon for me, but I think that's one way. I think it's also important to face issues that are happening systemically at a common level. Every single year, you know, as time has gone on, we've had a lot of challenges with budget. We've had proposals to cut our budget over and over. Every single school year, I would set up staff meetings and go to staff meetings at every building at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. And I would do a budget presentation. I would talk about the highs, the lows, the challenges, about how we're trying to, you know, modify and grow our school system. Because I wanted everyone to understand exactly what we're trying to do, no secrets. So I think, to your point, Wendy, to your question, in order for me to leave an impression with the teaching community, the support community, and the Hingham Public Schools, I need to create a series of Polaroid pictures of positivity so that they can see that the person that has the title of trying to manage what's happening, they can identify with, they can reach out to, and they can feel that there's a level of connection. And I think it takes work to do that. I think sometimes it's challenging, but I would encourage the central office staff to do that as well, because it's important.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Heather?
Okay. Hi, Dr. Maestas. So my question kind of piggybacks on Wendy's. And I wanted to mention when you were talking about going into a classroom and having kids teach you what they know, it instantly brought me back to an activity we do in the spring in 8th grade English called the how-to projects, where the kids demonstrate a skill. Sometimes they bake something, or it's a recorded sport activity. And I can actually think of school committee members' children's how-to projects, and they're so happy to share their knowledge with everyone. So I thought it just reminded me of that, and I thought, you know, wonderful that you recognize how important it is to listen to the children and to value what they bring to the table. And I think that's really
absolutely.
That's the heart of it. I think so. My question, I've been teaching English, like I said, for 25 years in the middle school, only in Hingham. So my question is really around teacher morale as well. I think with the, you know, coming off of the heels of the pandemic, just with teachers feeling kind of burnt out, how do you plan to kind of revitalize the teaching staff and make people feel, you know, kind of re-energized and, you know, hit the restart button? And also feel like, you know, we're in this together.
Yeah. So I'm going to send Chairwoman Nee a link to a video. And 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I started doing opening day thematic motivational openings. And what I would do is I would absorb what's happening in the school district, you know, take in all the things that we're working with, you know, when we had, difficulty. And I would search out for 2 months this theme. What would we do in our school district to kind of get everybody on the same page, get them excited, motivated? You know, we all have challenges. I know the pandemic has put, has really felt teachers, you know, burnt out. And feeling that, you know, they've expended themselves beyond what they have ever been expended. So one of the things that I have done is I create this theme, and I find a song that actually fits that theme. And I get my visual and performing arts department together. And what we would do is I would explain my vision, what I see happening, and how to take that opening day and make this opening day so special that teachers felt like, yes, I can do this. I am here. I'm excited. I believe in this school system, and I can get into that classroom, and I'm going to knock it out of the park. And that's what I really wanted our teachers to feel. I have there's about 8 or 9 of them that have been recorded online. You know, we did one, This Is Me. You might have seen it years ago. That was just I wanted, we were talking about at the time about equity, understanding, and acceptance of who you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. We want you in Plymouth. And that is for teachers, that is for students. If you're part of our community, we want you to feel like this is where you belong. So we came up with the song "This Is Me," and I had our performing arts department perform it. Students, it was every opening day. I always had students deliver the message, because these are the people you're in front of every day. These are the kids that you're teaching. So I wanted kids to say, "This is me. Take me as I am." So I think I would try to do something like that. And I think this year is probably more important than most, because there's so much to be thankful for. We're in a revival mode. We're reviving ourselves. We're trying to recreate ourselves. We've learned so much, but yet on the other side, we still have to remember that pacing and longevity and doing a good job and getting these students to feel that they're getting caught up is so important. So we expect a lot from teachers. And what I want to do is create this atmosphere that, that was worth it today. And it'll keep me going till tomorrow. But as a school district, I think that needs to continue every day. So what I did every year is I would create posters for every classroom. And that poster, I'd make a poster for every single classroom, and we would send them to the schools, and teachers would put them up. You can go to classrooms in Plymouth, and you'll have 12 of those posters in a row of all the different things over the years to show this is what we believe in Plymouth, right? And I think Hingham has a lot of those sayings and slogans and those really rich pieces, but how do we demonstrate it? And I think that's what I'd like to do is, I think we need that almost like a kind of like a shock. Okay, how do we get you? How do we get you to be excited when you've been through such a difficult period of time in your life? So that would be my approach.
Thank you very much, Tim.
I want to get into curriculum and instruction. Do you have any thoughts about the major challenges or opportunities in curriculum and instruction post-pandemic?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think we have learned a lot. I was a technology education person that shifted to systemic technology, but my, the growth that we have had in our school districts across the country, across the world, has been huge. And how, I think there's going to have to be some level of understanding of what that sweet spot's going to be, because before the pandemic, we weren't doing a lot of what we did with technology. And there was a mad dash to get all this technology in place, make it work, get a common system, common format, make sure everybody's using it the way they should. And teachers had to grow along with that. They had to, a lot of it was self-taught. A lot of it was, how do we make sense of it all to deliver good instruction to our kids? So I think as we go forward, the curriculum development and how we morph into a modern curriculum delivery means is going to develop into more uses of technology than we've ever seen. And I think teachers will embrace it now more than they ever have, because they see the benefit. I'll give you an example. We would not be having this interview today 2 years ago. We would not be doing it. There's great benefit. We are all different places. I'm almost 3,000 miles from you. Everyone's in their own space, but yet how do we use those very positive interactions and what we've learned with technology, and how do we infuse some of those pieces into the curriculum? Now, keep in mind, we have a lot of growth that needs to be taken into account on teacher professional development, because I'll tell you, there's no secrets here. We were flying by the seat of our pants. A lot of what was happening was self-taught. We did small workshops, get everybody on the same page. Everybody goes off and tries to make sense of it. I think, the coordinators for curriculum and assistant superintendents, the principals, teachers all have to be involved in understanding what that model is going to mold into, but it's exciting. I think it's extremely exciting to be able to expand the walls of our schools in ways that we have never seen before. So I like to take the approach of honoring what we've learned, and making sense of it and shaping our curriculum, shaping our methodologies to have a standard, because I think a lot of what's happened with technology and infusion of technology with the pandemic, we don't have a lot of standards. You know, I think we've all just kind of just put things out. And I've worked with a lot of school districts since I left Plymouth, and that seems to be the common thing. It may be a little different in Hingham, but I think we just have a lot of work to do. But it's exciting because curriculum is what I used to do, and it's a love of mine, you know. So I think it's how do we make sense of where we were, where we are, and where we need to be.
Great, thank you. Michelle?
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hello. So Hingham has the privilege of participating in the MetCo program. So we are just curious if you have any experience with MetCo, and whether or not you have any direct experience, how do you think you could support our MetCo students, our families, and our MetCo director?
So Plymouth is not a MetCo community. I was involved in a MetCo community in Longmeadow, and Longmeadow was connected with the Springfield area, and I had a number of MetCo students in my classes. And my first experience to MetCo is when I was an early, you know, entry-level teacher, and as I grew through the system, I had a great experience with the MetCo program, and I just stepped off as a commissioner for the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and I've done I've chaired a number of NEAS visits in school districts where they have MetCo programs. So we've taken a look at them and the characteristics of them and what the challenges are. And I think the common theme with MetCo programs is, you know, how do we create this environment that if we have a theme that everyone is included, how do we make that this ubiquitous feeling that it's just there, you just know it's there. And I think that's one of the challenges when you have students that are brought in from other school districts outside of yours, you know, Boston, you know, all these different suburbs, these inner city, you know, entities, and then you try to infuse them into your school. And I think it's challenging. It's extremely challenging. I did share the NEAS visit at Hingham High School about 4 years ago. Right. Yeah. And I remember talking with the MetCo director, and some of the challenges are there. They're there in every school district. And I think one of the big areas that I would like to understand is how MetCo students feel when they walk in the halls of Hingham High School. You know, what does their life look like from the minute they leave the house to the minute they get home? And I think that's one of the things that I would like to, if I was in that space, I'd like to understand where they come from and what challenges they have every day. And I think your point on supporting the MetCo director, I think the MetCo director probably has all this information very readily accessible, tip of her tongue, but I would like to talk with children and find out exactly what happens every day. What is it? What are those barriers? What prohibits you from feeling that you are an active student in that environment? But I think there are a number of challenges within programs like MetCo. I've seen it with school choice, where you have students that come from other school districts into another school district, and you know there are a lot of difficult situations that take place because they didn't grow up with the same neighborhoods. They didn't experience the same kind of cultural experiences. They didn't. There's restaurants that they would never go to because they've never experienced that. So how do we create that understanding of what those barriers are, and how do we as a school system, try to understand them, but more importantly, what is going to be the plan of breaking some of those barriers down. So I think students are at the core of that. And I think I would probably feel that the MetCo director would be a great source for beginning those conversations. And just as I said before, I think building trust with students in a role of a superintendent is paramount. You know, I've always wanted my students in my school district to see me and talk to me, say hi, come in. If there's something you need to talk to me about, you can come and talk to me. And that's not a typical situation, but I would enjoy that. I think it's valuable. But I think students want to be heard, and I would like to create opportunities for these different populations that may appear to be underserved. I would want them to feel that there's a level of equitable attention that's given to them.
Thank you very much. John?
Oh, great, thank you. So Gary, as you may know, the Hingham's involved in 2 MSBA projects right now. One's a core building for Foster Elementary School, and the other is a window project for Plymouth River School. So, I mean, the question has to do with, you know, with both projects are very early in the process right now. We just sort of like kicked off this year. So in a state of transitional leadership here, you know, how would you lead the effort for developing the educational plan and helping Hingham set themselves up for the future? Because this is really a critical year.
Yeah, you know, I've been very fortunate in my time to work with the MSBA. When I first came to Plymouth, we were under the old MSBA, and we built Plymouth South Middle School. So Plymouth used to have one middle school that used to house about 2,500 students, and we broke it up into and built a second middle school, which is Plymouth South. So when I first got to Plymouth, I worked with the MSBA on all the specifications for that building, but it was the old MSBA. We're used to pay up, and the MSBA would help with some of the bond bills, and they would pay it on a yearly basis and incur interest. So they redid it, as you all know. In my experience, I've been part of 4 green repair programs for roofs in our school district, and this is when the green repair program was kickstarted. And then we did Plymouth North and then Plymouth South. Jack McCarthy, I know well, and Jack is the executive director of the MSBA. His assistant and I go way back. I think the first thing that I would do, to your point, John, is I would call Jack and ask him, you know, how are we? How's everything going? Is there anything that needs to be done to help the process? I think it's important to keep that constant line of communication. Like it or not, the MSBA process is political. I'm not sure that people understand that at a local level, but you got to lobby the MSBA. You got to do it heavily. And these projects, you know, are very complicated. The MSBA wants to know the community commitment before they step forward. You can walk through all of these steps and you can make sure that you have all the paperwork filed and all these benchmarks, but until the community has a strong commitment to meet their financial obligation, you know, it's a dead deal until you can prove that. And so I feel very fortunate in my time to have navigated that system, which is cumbersome. It takes time. You know, my personal feeling about the MSBA right now is there aren't a whole lot of districts out there that are going to be willing to pass an override under these conditions post-pandemic. And I think there may be a sweet opportunity for a school district to do the legwork to get some of this stuff done so that when the timing is right, you know, the community contribution to that bond is ready. But I think it's important, you know, that the community is ready to go, because missed opportunities, you know, I've been in MSBA board meetings where schools have been offered school districts have been offered a school, and they didn't have community support, and they got deferred. So I think it's important that all those benchmarks be communicated at the highest levels. It's like I've always said that getting a building built is like a political campaign. You know, you go after it and you don't quit until you're elected. And that's how the MSBA process needs to be. That everyone needs to understand where they need to go and what needs to be done and how everyone fits into that model. So, you know, John, that's my answer, and it's purely based on my experience. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ways to handle it, but I'm about relationship. I'm not about politics. I would call, I would ask the right questions, and I'm not going to make any promises. I just want to do a good job and make sure that we're meeting the letter of the MSBA law.
Great. Gary, could I just redirect just a little bit? So I think that, I think if you came here, you'd find that there's a very good support for the building, or for, you know, that effort at Foster, because it's a 1951 building. But my thoughts were more internally within Hingham, where, you know, we've come to the end of a strategic plan. We don't have a strategic future set for ourselves right now, but we're building a brand new building, presumably, or a major renovation to set our, you know, curriculum and our educational profile up for the future. So my question was more directed at how do you garner and lead the effort internally here with the leadership team, so we end up in the right direction for our future in a state of transitional leadership?
Absolutely. I think that is a very valuable and well thought out question, because you know, that building needs to represent the future, not the past. And I think all of the bits and pieces that Hingham would like to have need to be represented. One of the things that I have had the pleasure of doing is having listening sessions, where we would set up a variety of sessions where we meet with principals, with teachers, with community members, with stakeholders, and survey them live on what their needs are. What do you think the school district needs? Because that information is going to be extremely helpful when you start looking at architects, and those architects actually have the ability to take the information that you're giving them, and they actually can develop that plan. We worked with AI3 for both of our building projects. And they, for our second school, they brought in a consultant from High Tech High in California, and in Napa Valley. And I actually went out to visit the school. And what we ended up doing is taking all the information from the stakeholders in Plymouth. What they did is they went out and found a school district and a school that was actually moving that direction. They redesigned their school system to actually go in that direction. They brought up the key designers from that school, and we had 4-day workshops with this different school district to actually start to think differently, because we only know what we know. We don't know what our school should look like down the road. And we have to design schools that are conducive to a very evolving environment, a studio type space where we need to think more in that frame of mind. And I think we learned a lot from the process, but I think it is probably a 3-step process. One, go out and do this massive listening from teachers, administrators, stakeholders, understand exactly what the needs are, right? Really, we want that fingerprint of the school to be reflected in these conversations, right? And then we need to go through the process and find an individual group that is positioned to develop a school that is reflective of what is being projected by these different groups. And then we let them do their work to help guide us through that process. A great deal of trust, but I think if the school district can dictate that, and the school district can put that parameter in place to say, we're in charge of it. We may not know how to put mortar between the bricks, but we know what it should look like when it's done.
Great. Thank you. Liza?
Yeah. Hi, Gary.
Hey.
So Hingham at our town meeting last year appropriated nearly a 9% budget increase for fiscal year 22. And a significant portion of that was supported by federal ESSER funds and a one-time money from our town's fund balance. So the increase will result in a town-wide revenue deficit for fiscal year 23 and beyond without an operational override to continue the supports being funded. How would you support the district through an override that can be in sync with a currently undeveloped strategic plan?
John is probably waiting for my answer on this one.
We all are.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, we've all been through economic issues. You know, 08, 09 was difficult for us in my school district, and you know, we were talking about losing staff. We were talking about all these different things. The biggest thing that happened in my time in Plymouth, on top of 08, 09, was the closing of the nuclear power plant in Plymouth. So the nuclear power plant used to generate $9 million a year of revenue to the town of Plymouth. So it's basically a huge hole. And it was our job in the school district to let the community understand that we do have these economic issues. Okay, we do have economic issues, but yet we have an obligation of offering an education. And I think it's a campaign, once again, to really highlight that, yes, the pandemic has created a great deal of difficulty. We've had to implement things that we never thought we'd have to implement. One of the greatest concerns that I have going into this school year is the social and emotional toll that it's taken on our students. And if you take a look at some of the requests that were probably made through the funds that were gained, that $9 million through town meeting, there's probably some counseling supports that were put in place, a lot of different aspects to how we can address the needs. That we're just at the beginning of that. We're just starting to maybe even scratch that. So I think the school departments, and this is all school departments across the country, are going to have to do a really good job of explaining, not crying, not complaining, not say, hey, poor us. No, these are our current conditions. We need to show that the money that you have allocated, we know we had a bump, we had an increase. We know that, and we know it was subsidized, but we also need to know that those services that were put in need to continue, because we're not going to recover from this. We're not going to recover academically, socially, emotionally, and just environmentally. It's going to take years to get back from that. So my answer to your question, Liza, is I think we as a school system have to put together a very clear plan of how you're going to sell the budget. It has to be sold. It's got to be sold to the finance committee. It's got to be sold. First of all, school committee's got to support it. And they have to, in my view, school committee has to be extremely well-versed in exactly what we're trying to do. Because when you're cornered in the grocery store, you have this information at the tip of your tongue, and you know exactly what you're trying to do. And I think that is the same for principals. That's why I used to go and talk to teachers so that they can defend what's happening. And we have to create a storyline of, this is real stuff. We're not putting fluff stuff in the budget. We are trying to address the real needs of what's happening in the school system. And I can tell you, Eliza, there's probably a great amount of data that can be used for the amount of challenges that we're going to have September, October, November, that we can help prepare our budget for December, January presentation, February, whenever we have to do that. In Plymouth, we always had our budget hearings at school committee level, second meeting in December. So we would build our budgets. Our principals will come in in August ready. We are already ready to go. So we would try to get our budgets done. But I think an early start would be good. I'm not sure what John's timeline is to get things going, but you know, sell, sell, sell. But we can't sell a bill of goods. It has to be factual, has to be actual, and every single person that understands what we're trying to do needs to have information. They can't just say we need more money because. They need to know the reasons why. So I think it's important to have those elevator speeches prepared, and it's a teaching moment. You know, that's what we do. We teach. So how do we teach the budget, right? So that's kind of how I would approach it. Challenging, but you know, it's unprecedented. So we got to get through it.
Definitely. Jen?
Hi, Dr. Maestas. Can you hear me?
Hey,
Hi.
I can.
Communication with parents and staff is vital in public school districts. And additionally, one positive thing that came out of the pandemic is increased engagement from families. How would you capture the energy and interest of the stakeholder group and use it for the betterment of Hingham Public Schools? And additionally, please provide specific examples of the communication strategy, plan, and tools implemented in other districts through the central office and across the district.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I did about 7 years ago is I hired through our cable funds, I hired a communication specialist to flood the social media airwaves with positive messages that came out of central office. And this was done on a daily basis, weekly basis. And they were messages that were no longer than 2 minutes about what we're trying to do in the school system. So I think a communication campaign has to be established. I started 13 years ago a newsletter called Friday Notes, and it would go out every single Friday like clockwork. Every Friday we had a newsletter that went out talking about all the positive things that are happening in the school district. I wouldn't talk about athletics. I would talk about academics, student achievement, and important things that were happening that parents needed to know. Plymouth has its own newspaper, so they got sports got all the airtime they needed. But it was really focusing on what we were trying to do in our school system that parents really should know about. I have done a lot of focus groups in my time, and I've run a variety of strategic planning sessions in my school district and as a consultant in other districts. But one of the things that parents have said time and time again is, you know, we want more information. I think the pandemic kind of forced superintendents and principals to give more information, but it was really, you know, stuck on the whole idea of where we are with, you know, infection rates, where we are with, you know, all these different updates on COVID. I think parents want to find out about what's happening in their schools and what's happening, whether it's positive. If there's a parent night that has to be established, we would do that. I'll give you an example. I put my announcement for retirement in October of 2019. I wanted the school committee to have a year to find my replacement. And here comes the pandemic in February, you know. January, February, we started, you know, hearing things, and then we started getting a little bit out of hand. So what happened was over the last 12 years, I spent a great deal of effort creating these international programs for students to study abroad in the middle school and high school. So I would have students going to Italy, to China, to Japan, to France, to the Dominican Republic, and they would go there for a week and they would study. We had programs set up with partnering schools. And one of the difficult things that we had is we had 7 trips leaving in February. And parents had already paid in full. So what I did is I set up a meeting for all these parents and their children to come and meet with me, and we went through every single issue that they were facing. I lobbied heavily politically to get their refund. I lobbied to make sure that they were able to understand from the company's perspective what their complications were, because why aren't these people giving, they say a natural disaster, we would consider a refund. Well, nobody is a pandemic a natural disaster. So we went back and forth, and we were able to work with parents over months to get these refunds. But that's a small example for big issues. The schedule change at the high school, that's a big one. Parents want to know how it's going to impact my students. When we talk about APs, and we don't have an AP, or we do have APs, we want to include more APs, or we get a different program change. I believe in having parents come together, and we have opportunities. Communication is great when you get it and they read it. It's great when they can watch it on a video, but I believe it's more useful when you can meet parents eye to eye, face to face. You walk through the issues, and no one can ever come back to me and say, you didn't tell us that. We gave an opportunity. If you didn't show up, you didn't call me, I'm not sure what else I can do. So I think it's my approach is to try to do as many things as I can face to face. But behind that, there's this model of constant, smooth, just expected communication. So I think using social media, I was not a fan. I wasn't, but I had to become, I had to become one of those superintendents. I don't tweet about myself. I don't tweet, I'm going to go to your school today. I don't do any of that. What I do is I want the community to see what's happening in schools. I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing. I want kids to tell their parents what I'm doing when they're at the dinner table. That's where it should come from. So I think it's important to do those things, but I think it's visibility, accessibility, approachability. I would hope that would be what I would model for the other administrators, new administrators, and hopefully incoming administrators, is that's what's expected, that's what you should do, and that's what Hingham would expect. Sorry for the long answer.
That's great. Ness?
Hi again. Along with the pandemic, it created all kinds of trauma for everyone. Interim transitions can as often create instability as well, and we hope we don't lose ground on some of the things that we were working for, what our district was working for. And Hingham has experienced a lot of change in the last few years. We've had a 2-year superintendent, 2 interim principals that are coming on board, and now an interim superintendent who is going to be coming on board as well. We are on the cusp of developing a 5-year strategic plan in the middle of all of this, because we need to make it as
absolutely
possible. So can you, how would you provide stability in the district while setting us up a strategic plan? And then can you give us an example from your career that describes how you led a new community and families while dealing with change?
Yeah, well, I think this is a very unique situation because, we have the pandemic. We have the ability to build, renovate or build. And I'll tell you, the MSBA does not really like to renovate. And then you have some other remodeling that can be done. You have your strategic plan. You have 2 interim principals, and then you have potentially interim principals, and then you have an interim superintendent. So how do you make that smooth, right? So that people feel that we're not, we got more things to worry about now, because who's running the ship, right? Who's piloting the ship? Well, I think one of the things that I would like to propose, if I actually get into that space, is that I would like to help as much as I possibly can on the hiring of the superintendent, because I would like to begin a transition, and I help with that transition. And I want everyone in that school system to see that the things that we have learned from the past, the pandemic, what we're trying to do, I'm there to carry the ball. And I would want everyone to understand how I'm going to carry it and when I hand it off. But I want people to know that. I want them to know it at a high level. But I want them to embrace that next person. And I think it's important that it gets built to that point that it's a smooth transition, smooth handoff. And I'd like to support that individual as much as I possibly could. There are people out there. I've been in education for 32 years. You know, I retired because I let myself go. You know, I focused too much on my job, and I needed a break. I'm 57. It's not like I'm not retired. You know, I do a lot of stuff still, but I just want you to know that I want to be specific to your point. I know we're over an hour, but I want you to know that my tact approach would be to become ingrained in your school system so people see me as a person from Hingham. I'm there to work for them. And I would say this to teachers. I would say this opening day. This is my plan. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is how you can help me. I need you to help me, because I can't do the work that needs to be done if we're not on the same page. If you want an outstanding superintendent that's going to carry the ball from what you've helped me to put together, then that's what you can do. I want that. I would like to see that happen. And I know you love the school system. We have people on here that have been here for 25 years. You know, people aren't going to stick around if they weren't invested. So I think it's important for me to do that. You know, I've got a lot going on in my life. You know, I do a lot of consulting. I'm mentoring 6 principals in right outside of Houston. I start. I'll be there on Tuesday. But you know, my life is I'm committed to children. I'm committed to helping. If I was the person that was in that space, I would want you to feel that there's a high level of confidence that you have in me to help make that transition, and you depend on me for that. I want to take something off your plate. I mean, this is what I do. You know, I don't want you to have to do all the heavy lifting. That's what central office is for. We would make that happen. But on the other side, I would feel extremely disappointed in myself if I couldn't leave your school district in better shape than when I came in. Not to say that you need to be better, but that you're in a position that you feel very comfortable that you can bridge the gap without any stumbling, without any difficulty. It's hard to find a superintendent today. I know that. It's very difficult. There's a lot of competition. There's a shortage. The national average for superintendents is 2.5 years. I understand that, but I would do everything I possibly could to help you to find that gem that's going to continue the work that you know needs to happen in your school district, because you wouldn't all be doing this. You don't get paid to do this. You want to do it because you want your kids to thrive. And my only goal and motivation is to try to help you with that.
Great, thank you. All right, so we just have 2 more questions.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
We're covering a lot of ground.
Yep.
So could you tell us about a major controversy or confrontation you faced during your career, and how you dealt with it and what you learned from it?
Wow, I have, there's so many. I'll give you a most recent one. That this is the only time in my 32 years, I grew up with a very difficult background. You know, I grew up in the middle of nowhere with nothing. My parents, my dad's first in his family to go to college. My mom was a cosmetologist, cut hair for 55 years. I dropped out of college twice. I just had this undying need to work with kids, you know, so I can handle stuff. I can carry other people's load when I feel I need to, but I need to find a way to offload it when it's time, right? Because everyone needs to carry their weight. As a superintendent, I always felt that I needed to be the person to carry the difficulty. Even though a principal's having difficulty with something, I needed to be there to help them. I needed to be the one that was going to be out front. And I take pride in that. I will do that every day. We had a very difficult situation. This is the only time in my career that I couldn't sleep. The only time. I've dealt with awful stuff. We had a situation where we had kids that were in Milan, Italy, and they were there when the pandemic was just exploding. The coronavirus was exploding in Italy, and I had 25 students in Milan at a partner school. We had a partner school in Milan. They would come to Plymouth. We would go. They would study for a month here. We would go over there, stay with families. Our students left Milan 5 hours before the airport. The country was closed. They almost didn't get out. Okay, so our kids landed, and Plymouth went crazy. Okay, those kids are going to infect the town. They're going to. Everything's going to. It's going to fall apart. So we had assurances, we had documents from every single family that these kids were exposed to, you know, the best that we could, that there was no exposure, you know, and this is early on, we didn't know a whole lot. So what happened was about 12 days after they got, I let the kids back. They came back full time. They were in school. They were getting ridiculed every day. You're not going to get me sick in school, are you? So it was these are high school kids. They were brutal. Other kids were brutal on them. So I get a call from my facilities director who has a police scanner in his vehicle. This is at 9 o'clock at night. And he says, Gary, I just need to let you know that I just heard over the scanner that there's an ambulance over at one of our family's homes. And the Brewster ambulance folks will not go into the home because they heard the kid just got back from Italy. They're afraid that everyone's going to get infected. They called Beth Israel Plymouth. They would not go into the home. Nobody would go in. So the fire chief calls me right after that, says, Gary, we got a situation. It took 2 hours for anyone to go in the home. They got all this stuff. They went in. They suspected that this kid had coronavirus. Okay, they went in. They got the kid out, took him to Beth Israel. Midnight, I get a call. They released him. He has flu-like symptoms, but they don't have any test kits. So they said, come back tomorrow, we'll test you. This was the minute that child's address was put out over the police radio, the town went ballistic. It was all over social media. There's a kid that went to Italy. He's got coronavirus. It was a disaster. Okay, it was a disaster. I closed the school district, and we disinfected the entire district. Cost $250,000. Okay, that night, I went to bed about 1 o'clock. I woke up at 2, completely drenched in sweat. That has never ever happened to me. I had this feeling that I allowed children to go to Italy, come back, and infect the school district. And I was the one that allowed these kids back. Come to find out, finally got a test, he's negative. Meanwhile, there's police involved because the family's getting harassed over social media, he's getting threatened. And I take phone calls, you know, so I'm talking to people, I'm talking them off the ledge, you know, we're okay. When I got that negative test back, it's like, okay, we're good, right? But that was, I have more difficult outcome circumstance examples, but one of the things that impacted me most recently was when I allowed, it was my decision. I told the principals at both high schools, let them in. There's no proof. There's no evidence that they were exposed. If there's a problem, they can call me. No, they called me.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
Okay, so Carlos, do you want to take the final question?
Oh, here's the final and the easiest question ever. What
Good.
what would your friends say about you?
Oh, what would who?
Your
My friends? They would probably say that I'm a nut. You know, they would say that I'm very committed. If you're my friend, I will take care of you. And I think they know that. And I'll give you a quick example. I'm a motorcycle rider. I ride a Harley Davidson. I've done it for years. I cruise the country on my motorcycle. It's not uncommon. People in my communities that I've worked in know that. So I did a recent trip on the Blue Ridge Mountains down south. So I did the entire Blue Ridge on my bike, right? So it was 6 of us that went down, families, my wife on the back of my bike. We're driving through right outside Mystic. So we trailered our motorcycles all the way to Virginia. We get to Mystic, and my friend's wife texts my wife and says, our truck's running hot. We think we have a leak, radiator leak, right? Pull over. I look at the truck. I said, we got to change the radiator, right? So my friend says, no, we can't do that. I said, I have all my tools. Park it over here. Let's change the radiator. So I said, get on the phone, find a radiator. 45 minutes later, we're back on the road. But those are my friends know I'm a nut. I will do, I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends that I have, I'm invested. You know, I know the difference between a leader, being a colleague, and being a friend. Every single principal, I introduced one of my principals to his wife, former in Plymouth. I introduced them, okay? I'm a better friend today to them than I ever have been, because I know the difference between a colleague and a friend, you know, and I had to separate. We got our doctorates together, and the minute I became superintendent, he probably said what happened to him, but I could never give this impression that anyone had preferential treatment, because they know me differently. And that's how I am. I take pride in that. But I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think I love my friends.
You did. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. This is the end of our questions. And I know Susan was going to try to connect you with the other principals. Have you had a chance, and central office staff, have you had a chance to speak with anyone? No, not yet. Not yet. I have met your high school principal. He was just taking over when I ran the NIAS visit years ago. Mm-hmm. I think he knows, he remembers me, but I'll talk to him. You know, I have tomorrow night I have a commitment with my mom's, one of my mom's services, but you know, this is a great, I enjoyed this immensely, talking about education, and you know, it's just a good, it was a good time for me. That's great. Thank you. We enjoyed hearing from you too. And yeah, please send me any videos you have. I will. I'll do that. I'll do that in the next hour or so. That's great. Yeah, I remember this is me. And oh yeah, I've lost 30 pounds since then, so I kind of look a little bit different. So that's great. So anyway, this was a very one-sided interview, but if you have any questions for us, if you just let me know and I can connect you with the right person. Yeah, and, absolutely. And we will be in touch very shortly. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for accommodating. Gary. Good luck. Yeah. Thank you. Nice meeting you all. So much. Good luck with the process. Thank you, Gary. Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye. 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 So with that, all right. So with that being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn the screening committee.
So moved.
Thank you, John.
I'll second.
Thank you. So that meeting is adjourned, and then a motion to adjourn the school committee.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the school committee.
Thank you.
Second.
Sorry, who is that?
I said second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. And I will see you over Zoom tomorrow. So,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.